Guys, what is the most disgusting and down bad thing you've ever done in the bedroom? A few nights ago my girlfriend and I were supposed to have our first three-way with a much older guy. The other guy was someone who volunteered with us on weekends at the same homeless shelter. My girlfriend and I were in the process of looking for someone to have a three with, and he eventually became our guy, as he was a little dirty and we liked the idea of it. But did he like us enough to want to have a three-way with us? At first, his answer was an awkward "I don't know." However, he was open to discussing the details, and at some point his answer transitioned from the awkward "I don't know" to an enthusiastic "I'm in." We were not all on the same page regarding rules and boundaries, as he expressed some weird views on rope and including it in the bedroom, but other than that small issue it was all good. The guy came over, and as soon as all of us were unclothed, the other guy had an unexpected panic attack. My girlfriend wanted to call an ambulance, but the other guy frantically informed us that it was something he had to overcome himself. I asked him if there was anything we could do, but he said no. I googled what to do during a panic attack. According to Google, the treatment methods basically came down to encouraging the person to practice slow breathing and to figure out ways to distract them. As a distraction, I decided to tell the other guy that I was capable of giving myself brain. It was true, but he refused to believe me, so I showed him how limber I was by literally flexing. My girlfriend got annoyed at me because she thought it was an inappropriate thing to do at that moment, but lo and behold, we soon realized that it was working. The other guy was beginning to laugh as well as get a stiffy. I didn't blame him for laughing because I looked ridiculous in that position. My legs were almost behind my head and my back door was visible for all to see. On one hand, I was able to distract the other guy to the point of panic attack almost gone. But on the other hand, it became obvious that the other guy was getting more than enough enjoyment out of watching me go to town on myself. He was stiffer than a statue. I didn't stop giving myself brain as I was unsure if the panic attack was totally gone, and truth be told I was low-key enjoying it myself. The other guy proceeded to rub one out while watching me, which prompted my girlfriend to stop me and ask the other guy if it was safe to assume that he was feeling better. The other guy said yes. My girlfriend asked if it was best if we called it a night. Both my girlfriend and the other guy suddenly looked at me for the final say. I looked at my girlfriend, and decided that even though she was not feeling it, we should continue the deed. And so we did. About an hour later, of my girlfriend looking very uninterested in the act, and at one point resorting to just observing me taking it from behind, me and the guy both finished and called it a night. I hired an intimacy worker to trip sit me while on mushrooms. I have been visiting intimacy workers for several years, and I've used mushrooms about twice a year for 15 years, but I've never combined these activities. Both activities are legal where I live. I respect the power of the mushrooms. I believe that they can be used in a healthy and responsible manner for both recreation and personal growth. I'm also comfortable with my lifestyle choice of visiting intimacy workers. I've often had the desire to be with a woman during my previous mushroom trips, to experience the sensations of touching, cuddling, kissing, and more during the trip. For those who've never experienced the effects of these wonderful plants, mushrooms can amplify sensations in ways that are difficult to articulate. In the context of intimate excitement, I describe it as a feeling of regressing back to pre-intimacy, where every sense is like a new experience. But it's actually even more intense than that. To clear up some common myths, mushrooms may cause visual distortions and patterns, but they do not make a person hallucinate, nor do they cause a person to lose control of their own actions. Mushrooms are not poisonous or toxic. You cannot die just by taking them. The biggest danger from mushrooms is psychological issues, which are extremely rare but can happen if a person is either not respectful of their power, takes too much, or already has existing mental issues. My current situation: I've been visiting an intimacy worker, let's call her Lana, about twice a month for the last year or so. I really enjoy our time together, and Lana seems to enjoy our sessions too. That said, I acknowledge that Lana spends time with me because I'm paying her, and I respect that. During our last meeting, I raised the idea of Lana being my trip sitter with benefits and briefly explained what I had in mind, and she responded very positively. Lana smokes grass regularly, but she doesn't have any experience with psychedelics, so she won't be familiar with how my demeanor is likely to change during the trip. This is my plan: I'll visit Lana again before the trip to discuss details. I'll pay her for a longer session to make sure we have enough extra time to discuss details, expectations, and any questions or conditions she might have of me. Assuming the discussion goes well, I'll hire Lana for a 6-hour session. A mushroom trip lasts about 4 to 5 hours, and I'd strongly prefer that she doesn't leave me in the middle of the trip, so this will give me sufficient time to go through the entire trip together with her. I'll make sure that I and my home are very clean prior to Lana's arrival, and make sure to have anything available that she might need or want during her visit. I'll set up the music for the duration of the trip. I normally make a playlist before a trip because I prefer to avoid the need to select music during the trip itself, since ordinarily simple tasks can be somewhat mentally strenuous during a trip. I want to make sure Lana is comfortable in my home before I take the mushrooms, so I won't take them until she arrives and I'm confident enough that she's comfortable. I'll take half the dose that I'd normally use when tripping solo. I don't want the trip to be too intense because otherwise I'm likely to become too inwardly focused and uninterested in intimacy. I don't expect to get physical with Lana during the first 60 to 90 minutes after taking the mushrooms. I always find the initial stage of a trip to be the most discomforting, since it usually just consists of waiting for the effects to begin. I'll probably want to take things very slowly once we start physical interaction, like with a very gentle massage. I'm thinking of asking Lana to treat me as if I were a V-card owner, since it's very likely to feel that way to me. Additionally, my goal is not just to orgasm. I feel that intimacy is a journey rather than a destination, and I think this will be especially true for this experience. With regards to intimate activities, I won't ask or expect Lana to do anything unusual or outside of what we'd normally do. Our usual activities are pretty vanilla, and we always practice safe intimacy. Just to be absolutely clear, Lana will stay sober during this session. I'd never ask another person to take mushrooms on my behalf. I'm ready to go through with it. I hired an intimacy worker to trip sit me while on mushrooms. We originally scheduled a November appointment, but circumstances forced us to postpone until January. The upside of this is that we had a lot of extra time to discuss ideas and fine-tune things over several regular appointments between then and now. Here's what we arranged. I created a rough itinerary of the evening and shared it with Lana. The itinerary gave an outline of what we might do and how I might feel during different stages of the trip. We made a 6-hour appointment at my home. This was an evening appointment because I preferred a trip during darker hours. I created a playlist for the evening. The resulting playlist was about 20% content based on her suggestions, although I tried to keep the other 80% within the realms of general acceptability. I shared the YouTube playlist with Lana so she could check it out prior to our appointment. I arranged lighting for the evening. I have a set of programmable smart bulbs that I use to create a light sequence to go with the trip. This means that the lights start off looking normal, but gradually dim and become more colorful as the trip becomes more intense, eventually making the room very dark and creating a nice ambience that slowly varies. There are no sudden changes, strobes, or anything like that, just slow transitions between different color combinations and brightness. I sent Lana a short time lapse of this to give her an idea of what to expect. I prepared the environment. We normally spend our regular appointments in the bedroom, but I vastly preferred a trip in the living room due to the lighting and speakers. So we stacked 2 single mattresses next to the couch to form a kind of double bed, as the height of the 2 mattresses happened to align perfectly with the couch. I cleaned my home pretty thoroughly on the day of the trip. Not only out of respect for Lana's comfort, but also tripping isn't as fun when you know you've got things to do the next day. We scheduled a delivery of sushi and appetizers for 8 p.m. This was mainly intended for Lana, as I often tend to lose my appetite during a trip. The appointment, I won't bore you with a full account of the entire evening, so I've summarized some of my main thoughts below. Lana is such a wonderful person and was incredibly understanding of what I was going through, especially during the onset, which is always the most difficult part for me. She knew exactly what to do to alleviate my discomfort and how to turn it into my easiest onset ever, even when it meant deviating from the itinerary. As we relaxed and chatted later in the trip, I often felt as though she was tripping with me. Feelings of spiritual connection are hugely amplified. I love acting as a couple and normally just kinda lose myself in those moments, but I really gained a lot of appreciation for just how incredibly intimate it is. This may sound strange, but the feeling of connecting with Lana in this way completely overshadowed any intimate aspect of it during early parts of the trip. I had some concern over how I might respond to such intense feelings, but a solid understanding and respect for our relationship and boundaries meant that this never became an issue. This point may be controversial here, but I really gained more appreciation for how Lana enjoys spending time with me, and how good she is at what she does. Yes, I know it's about the money and I'm sure someone is getting ready to jump in to tell me that I fell for an act, but it's very clear to me that Lana enjoys what she does. Suffice to say, intimacy on mushrooms is such an incredible experience. There's something so much more primal about it, which contrasts oddly with the higher level feeling of spiritual connection that I mentioned above. It also made me appreciate how intimacy is a full body experience and not only about penetration. We spent most of the evening just lying together, cuddling, talking, and doing things other than intimacy. But that's probably not surprising for a 6-hour appointment. Lana said I seemed much more relaxed than usual, and I was smiling a whole lot throughout the evening. She also expressed an interest in tripping herself, so she was very interested to see the effects on me, and said it gave her more confidence to try it herself. We talked a lot about intimacy work. We're both in a similar position that we're comfortable that there's nothing wrong with it, yet we're still not comfortable enough to be open about it with people we know, despite being legal in our country. I was still in disbelief of how incredible it was long after she left, and I still can't stop thinking about it now. The most wonderful evening of my life. I initially thought this would be a one-off, but I'm already thinking about the next trip. That said, I'm not going to rush into anything where mushrooms are concerned, so I'll take my time to come up with a new plan to make sure things stay interesting. I will be doing this again.